Hi, this is Zach here with the weekend edition of the Bulletin Board Heroes here at Zach's Traders Cafe for Sunday, the 27th of July. Starting off as usual with the FTSE 100, which is engaging in its breakout, which we've had, I suppose, since the middle of the month through 89.10, but more seriously with a break of that rising trend channel there, the green one, from the spring of last year. I suppose the resistance line there, the top of that from March, April last year, above the top of the old top of that channel, now at 90.60. We're looking for a move up to as high as the price channel top at 92.40 by the end of August. But you can see they're rising very quickly at the moment, and even Friday's slight dip not really damaging the picture. As I said, ideally we stay above 90.60. Worst case, we've got to test the floor of the channel there, and the old broken record at 89.10. But at the moment, it looks as though the 9,000 area would be the lowest we would head to. Moving on to the DAX, and here we've got a situation where we're still dancing and finding support at the 50-day line, 23,900. Suppose it looks as though this market wants to have a little dip below that 50-day line, even just to flush out the weak hands. 23,600, the initial July support, maybe there's a risk of that before we head higher. Still looking for 25,000 plus, and the top of that rising trend channel from the spring of last year at 25,200 by the end of next month, while we remain above that 50-day line. RSI has bounced 4 times this month at the neutral 50 level, so slightly disappointing that we haven't had more follow through on the upside, but obviously we've had massive gains since back in April. Dow is next, and here the picture is of attempted breakout of that flag formation that we've had since the beginning of the month, 43,600. The resistance line break above that. We're looking for not only 45,000, but a move up to the top of that rising trend channel from April last year or May last year, as high as 47,400. We could see that possibly by the end of next month, but obviously maybe give it into September, especially if we don't get a quick break at 45,000. Moving on to the cryptos and on to Bitcoin, which has got over that little dip it had to test the floor of the channel. I suppose one could make the channel slightly less at an angle there, but basic 115, the floor of the channel, which we bounced off on Thursday, and looking for this market to head to the top of the channel, which I suppose at the moment the best call on where that channel is heading up towards the low 140s. We could see that potentially by the end of next month, or at least the next 1 to 2 months, while we're above 115 on the downside. The 50-day line, 111,000, and the old May resistance, 112. Probably the worst we might expect on any rug pull. Obviously, we already had a rug pull on at the end of last week, especially on Friday. Moving along to Ethereum, which has been newly promoted here on the basis that we're hoping that it will head for the stars. We've got the first target here was around 3,400 at the top of the channel from back in March. Now that channel and the floor of that, the top of that channel rather, 3,480, the support. We bounced off that, so that is good news. And looking for this market to head up to 4260. The upper parallel of that rising trend channel from March might be a bit higher than that actually, but around the 4,300 area, 4260 by the end of next month, while we're above 3480. Next on the list is gold, and here we have had a bit of a dance around the old April resistance line there. That's 3430, which seems to be a very difficult level to break for some reason. We've got the support at the floor of that channel from April at around 3,300, and that's very close, 3,320. That's very close to the 50-day line rising as well at that number. In terms of the upside, any end-of-day close or at the next end-of-day close, hopefully, through 3430 would be the trigger for a move to 3,800, whether it's next month or in September. RSI still holding above neutral 50 at 52, which is a plus, as is the way, obviously, the 200-day line is still rising sharply. Moving on to the stocks and starting off with Alkemy, which is has broken the top of our target there, or our channel there, 198. Above that, we're looking for the upper parallel of that triangle, or at least that October resistance line, as high as £2 75, 76 by the end of next month. So expecting this to move quite sharply, maybe in the same way that it did in the autumn of 2022. Upside valid here while we're on the right side of that old peak from last month, around the 193 level. So let's see if Alkemy can continue to deliver the goods. Moving along to Avacta, where it was said with some trepidation that it looks like the shares have finally turned around. That was on the basis of that sideways shuffle and the RSI 50 rebound, which was around the 33, 34 pence level. That's worked very well in the sense that we've hit our first target there, which was the red line there, top of the triangle there from December, at 45 pence. Above that, we're looking for up to 62 pence by the end of August. So some relief there for Avacta holders, and especially if this is really the bottom, or that was the bottom there, under 30 pence back in May to July. On to another stock which seems to be coming back from the dead, and well, not dead, but you know what I mean. Atlantic Lithium here. We've got slightly similar to Avacta in the sense that we've had two RSI 50 rebounds. We've got a rising 50-day line. We've got the shares finding support at and above a rising 50-day moving average. So basically, 9 pence plus. A minimum on the upside would be up towards the old October resistance, October support, and February resistance around 10.8 pence. But after that, there is nothing between 10.8 and 18. So hopefully, we are on our way. Upside valid here while we're above the 50-day line there at 7 pence, and ideally we stay now on the right side of 8 pence. Next on the list is another stock which has had a slow burn recovery since December. I think I interviewed the company quite some time ago, maybe earlier this year. Rising trend channel there for Borders and Southern, rather, at heading for 10 pence. We're looking for that by the end of next month, while we're on the right side of that 50-day moving average at 6 3/4. You can see there have been multiple bounces for the RSI above the 50 level, so 3 of them in the last week or so. That should be a very strong signal, and it's actually even stronger because I don't think anybody else actually uses that signal. So that is something which is maybe unique to here, but has worked historically over the decades. Moving on to Empyrean. And here I know a lot of people are willing the shares up. We've had a kind of mid-move consolidation breakout on Friday. I suppose we wanted to see the shares break that peak that we had on the 18th of July, but we've done enough, I think, with the shares bouncing above the at and above the 200-day line at 0.1 pence above that, looking for 0.2 by the end of next month. That should give the shares plenty of time to get their act together. On to Helix exploration, which despite the umpteen drilling updates, looks as though it is on the way. It looks as though the market is looking for or sniffing out production at the company sooner rather than later. Top of the channel there, the July channel from last year, up to 35 pence, looking for that by the end of next month, while we're above the 50-day line at 23 pence. There was an unfilled gap to the upside on Friday, and there was also an RSI 50 rebound to accompany that. So good news there. On to Hamak, which seems to be providing blockbusting news on almost on a daily basis. We've had the shares gap up on the 21st of this month and test the old resistance, July resistance, initial one at around 3.2 pence. Second target here was 4.5 pence, and above that on an end of day close basis, looking for up to 6.4 pence by the end of next month, or hopefully even sooner than that. You can see that the rally here has been composed of multiple bounces of the RSI at and above neutral 50. So I suppose there's been 3 or 4 of them over the past month. Moving along to a stock which I don't think anybody looks at apart from me, which is IntelliAM. Here you can see that the shares hit their first target there at 102. They've hit the second target there, 146, that red resistance line right on the nose, which is obviously very satisfying. Third target, if we can get through 146 on an end-of-day close basis, would be up to £2.20, which we may see as soon as the end of next month, and then probably have to rejig the resistance lines there because we are rising vertically. In fact, it's that step pattern with a vertical rise, sideways, vertical rise, etc. And that is something you only see in the strongest of situations. So it looks as though that is very much on its way. Moving on to Karelian, and here you can see that there's, I suppose, not that much to recommend it after the spike that we had last month. What is interesting, though, is that we've had lower lows, or lower low this week, below 0.56, below the June support, but a higher RSI trace. So on the basis that we've got bullish divergence and a rising 50-day line, we're looking for the shares to fill the gap up to a penny at some time between now and the end of next month. If you're cautious, you wait for an end of day close above that 50-day line at 0.68, but actually it looks as though the shares have done enough of that key reversal to the upside on Friday and getting back above RSI 50. So looks quite interesting indeed, especially if you're somebody who likes to be an early bird in a situation rather than following momentum. Moving on to Kodal, and here the situation is that we gapped up last week. We've now pushed ahead without having to fill the gap down to 0.31. Weekly close above the 200-day moving average. So hopefully second time lucky with this. RSI bounces above neutral 50, 50-day line rising. And we're looking for up to 0.47 by the end of next month, while we're above the latest support there around 0.32 on an end-of-day close basis. On to Marechale Capital, or Marechale Capital. I'm not quite sure how you pronounce that. Doesn't really matter, does it? We've got the situation here with the shares bouncing off the floor of a rising trend channel there from February, top of the channel there at 2.5 pence. And that looks like the minimum that we'll get for the shares, given the way that they have just bounced off a rising 50-day line. And the RSI is pushed through RSI 50 as well. So ideally up to 2.5 pence by the end of next month. But actually, looking for much more, probably the upper parallel of that, heading as high as 3.5 pence. So 3.5 pence by the end of next month, I think it would be party time, not only for the shareholders, but also for the charting techniques. Another stock which we don't cover very much, it is New Frontier Minerals, and here we've managed to break above both the 50 and 200-day lines. The 200-day line currently rising there at 0.65. The next time these averages cross, it's likely to be a golden cross, and the top of the channel there and the target up to 1.2 pence by the end of next month, while we remain above the 50-day line, 0.57. It's also been a gap close buy signal in the sense that we had two gaps in June, and we filled both of them on a weekly close basis. On to the last few. First one is Phoenix Copper, where one is always waiting for some big news to come through. It always feels like there's going to be something spectacular. Obviously, so far we've just been waiting, but the shares gapped up in June. They never filled the gap. They're too strong to fill the gap down to 3.75 pence, so that is a positive. Very strong end to the week as well, with the shares opening at the low, closing at the high, which tends to mean that there's going to be follow through on the upside. Above the 200-day moving average there, just above 5 pence, looking for up to 8.75 by the end of next month. So let's see if Phoenix can finally deliver the goods as we probably all want it to do. Moving on to SolGold, and here we've hit top of the triangle target there around 8.9 pence. End of day close above that, we're looking for up to 12 pence by the end of next month. Ideally, we stay on the right side of 8 pence, whatever happens on that one. Finishing off with Tiger Royalties, and it looks poised after Friday's move. We had a net weekly close above the rising 50-day line. We've already got a rising 200-day moving average. The RSI closed above neutral 50. All we're waiting for now is a break of 0.22 pence on an end-of-day close basis to hopefully deliver a move not only up to 0.3, but maybe to retest the 0.55 peak that we had last month. Obviously, most people would be looking just for the 0.3 and be happy with that, but let's see if we can get up there sooner rather than later. That's it from me today. More updates tomorrow.